This is Tony and Mike in the morning on WICC 600, sponsored by Selco Heating and Air Conditioning.
Hey, good morning. We're at 9:09. We've got 35 degrees. Tony and Mike in the morning. Thanks for having a second cup of coffee here with us this morning. With me here in the studio is attorney Bill Bloss with Koskoff and Bieder. It's always an interesting conversation when Bill is here. How are you, Bill? It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right. Let's get right to it. We don't have much time. A few days ago, the Connecticut Post reported on an Oregon proposal to lower the alcohol levels for driving while impaired in his state. He said that a dozen people had been killed in his state last year by drunk drivers whose blood alcohol levels were lower than the current legal limit. In your opinion, does lowering the blood alcohol level for legal impairment a topic of discussion in Connecticut's legislature?
Well, there's already been a bill introduced in Connecticut, not to specifically lower the rate, but to, or the percentage, but to study it and to form a task force. There are a lot of places that are looking at this now, and it probably one of the great successes, actually, in safer driving was to lower the percentage from 0.10 to 0.08 a few years ago. The rate of drunk driving deaths has decreased. It is absolutely less of a problem today, although obviously still a very serious problem.
Sure.
Most European countries have a lower limit than in the United States, so it is something that's being looked at. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the move went to that in that direction.
What's the current legal limit right now?
Well, right now it's a 0.08, and a lot of times I get people will ask me, well, what does that mean, a 0.08 alcohol by volume of blood, but how much does it take to get to that level? And the answer is it depends. It depends on how big you are. It depends on whether you're a male or a female. Generally speaking, a beer will have about almost a 0.02. So if you can drink 4 beers immediately, that will get you to a 0.08. But over time, obviously, some is going to get burned off. But I think the lesson is from all of that: don't push it. The difference between a 0.06 and a 0.08, there's some big legal differences. But in terms of your impairment and your ability to operate a car safely, not that much of a difference. Don't push it.
All right, we're talking to Bill Bloss from Koskoff and Bieder. Is lowering the limit an actual deterrent to driving while intoxicated? There's going to be a lot of guys, women too, that are going to say, I can handle this, no problem.
So, it's a funny thing. I think there are two kinds of people that get in trouble with DWIs. One are people that it's once in a decade that they might get to that level. They're at an office holiday party, they're at some event, a Super Bowl party, something like that, and they would never think about driving. They would never take the risk of driving drunk. And then the other people are the people that are at the bar, at 1 in the afternoon every day, and they obviously present a much greater risk. They're lowering the limit for the person that is just going to willfully ignore the law. That's not going to have much impact. But for the social drinker, it probably does have a pretty significant impact and does discourage people from driving. There are big consequences. Even if you don't get in an accident, there are big consequences to a DWI. You lose your license for 90 days or 180 days if you refuse the test. So, in Connecticut right now, if you don't have your license for 90 days, that's a problem. How do you explain that to your employer?
Sure. Absolutely. It's funny because I was watching an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond, and in the episode, his wife goes to a party. She has a few drinks. She has an argument with her mother-in-law. She gets in the car, and she realizes, I've had too much to drink. I shouldn't drive. So she takes a little nap in the car, but the keys are in the ignition.
That's operation.
Yeah, and the police, they got her, and she had to go through a whole rigmarole. But I didn't realize that if the keys were in the car, even though you're not driving, it could be a problem for you.
If you're in a parking lot of greater than 15 spaces, or if you're on a highway. If you're in your driveway, it's okay.
Okay.
In Connecticut, anyway. But
right.
but still, just take the keys out of the ignition.
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, I wonder how many people know that. They believe that they're doing the right thing. Let me sit here and relax a little bit until it wears off. And then the keys are in the ignition. It's considered drunk driving.
But Tony, you talk about the people, the occasional drinker, the person that would almost never think about driving drunk or certainly wouldn't do it intentionally. Yet the greater danger today is actually texting while driving.
Yeah.
And the person that would never consider driving drunk is probably there's a statistically a pretty even likelihood that that person thinks nothing of texting. For some reason, socially, we haven't got to the point yet in this country where we think that texting is unacceptable, where drinking is unacceptable. And statistically speaking, texting while driving is more dangerous than impaired driving from alcohol.
Well, I don't know if you have any numbers in front of you, but how many people die because of texting and driving?
Well, there've been a lot of studies about actually the effect of texting while driving on operation, and comparing it to the impairment from alcohol. At least when you're texting, when you're driving after drinking, I'm not defending it obviously, and it's not a good thing, but at least you're watching, and you can see the car stopped in traffic up ahead of you. How long does it take to send a text? Want to say 5 seconds?
Maybe. Okay.
So if you're driving on 95 and you're texting, in 5 seconds, you know how far you've gone? You've gone a football field, 100 yards. And so you're not seeing that car stopped. And sometimes I hear your traffic reports, sometimes there's stop-and-go traffic on 95, and the 100 yards is a long way.
Sure. And you're watching, when you're driving, the car is going in and out, in front of you, and that's the first thing. This guy's either drunk or he's texting and driving at the same time.
Statistically, he's probably texting.
Yeah. That is really interesting. That's amazing. What about raising fines and increasing license suspensions and things like that?
So, right now the consequence, if you get a ticket for texting while driving, or actually using, the law is that you cannot pick up your cell phone while you're driving.
Right.
So even to just put it on speakerphone or whatever, you cannot touch it while you're driving. But it's only a $100 fine. So for the first offense. So there really aren't many consequences from the point of view of the motor vehicle side. The consequence comes in is if you get in an accident. Because if you may have inadequate insurance and somebody can come after your house, you can lose an amazing amount by driving carelessly, including while texting. If I were a parent of a teenager who had just got their license, I would absolutely get an app. There are commercially available apps that allow parents to monitor their kids' cell phone use while the car is moving. It will not accept texts while the car is moving. It will not accept phone calls while the car is moving. In fact, it'll even send a text back to the sender saying, "I'm driving right now, I can't respond. Leave me alone," basically. There's an app that AT&T puts out that's free that does that. There's also on your iPhone, you can put it into a privacy mode that if your iPhone is moving at greater than 15 miles an hour, it won't accept texts or won't accept phone calls. You ought to do that. Now, the flaw in that is that it can be reset manually, and so your kid can change it as soon as he or she gets in the car. But there are apps that send a notice to the parents that if that's changed.
Well, I would say do it secretly, but if you're like me, I'm going to need my kid to show me the app. Can you hang around a little bit?
Sure.
All right, don't go anywhere. We're talking with Bill Bloss. He's with Koskoff Bieder, and we're going to speak a little bit more with him coming up in just a little bit. Keep it here to WACC. Once again, we are talking this morning with Bill Bloss. He's with Koskoff Bieder. We're talking a little bit about drunk driving. We're talking a little bit about texting while driving, two things that you should never, ever, ever do, but we still tend to do it. Now, when there is an accident, whether it be, let's forget drunk driving for now, but when there is an accident, can the police legally, can they say, "Sir or ma'am, can I see your phone to see if you were texting at that very moment"?
Sure, they can ask.
Right.
It's the electronic equivalent of the officer saying, "Can I look in your trunk to see if there's any drugs in your trunk?" The police can ask you to do anything they want to. You are not obligated to give it to them without a warrant. But a lot of people do, and the police can, if they think that there's a reasonable suspicion, probable cause that you were texting, then they can actually get a warrant and download the data and find out exactly what you were doing. So there is a way to find out.
And that information never goes away. I don't care if you delete it; it's always in the cloud, as they say. So that's very interesting. Also, let's talk a little bit about marijuana. It's legal in Massachusetts. You can buy it just over the border. What does the state of Connecticut need to do to protect against people who are under the influence of of marijuana?
Well, that's a really good question without a really good answer, unfortunately. There are other states that it looks like that's the direction we're going. It looks like that there are several bills now, but one in particular in the Senate, state Senate, to legalize and regulate and tax marijuana. But there is some history across the country. Colorado has gone down this road, and there's actually was a pretty in-depth study by the Colorado Public Safety Department about what the effect has been on driving and on high school teen use and so forth. And the data is a little unclear, but what we don't have right now is we don't have a really solid test about or set of standards that police can use instantly, like with the breathalyzer, to determine if somebody's under the influence of marijuana. Now, or there's a lack of consensus on what the standard should be. So it's something that I'm afraid the General Assembly isn't going to look at carefully, but they really need to. This is not a trivial item.
Yeah, I mean, they make me laugh because, cigarette smoke, it's killing you, stop smoking. And now they're going to legalize marijuana. I mean, I don't know, this isn't cool. I mean, and the first thing that I thought, I don't know, man, there's going to be a lot of people out there driving under the influence of marijuana, and I'm going to be out there with them. Well,
without really good standards, too. Yeah. But you're right. And I'm just afraid that this is going to be one of these details that isn't going to be thought through all that carefully.
Right. Now, would a blood test see if you're under the influence?
Well, it depends on a blood test will show that there is the active ingredient for marijuana in your blood called THC, or a urine test will show that you're excreting, discharging the active ingredient. But exactly what what a level of THC causes someone to be impaired, there's a lack of scientific consensus on that. Alcohol is quite clear. If you're at a 0.08, there's widespread consensus that you are under the influence of alcohol. For marijuana, there's not that level of consensus. So really the police are going to have to rely on the so-called California tests, the roadside tests, can you walk, turn, say the alphabet backwards, things like that. And that's less compelling, honestly. It's certainly not as bright a line as we have right now for alcohol. So again, a detail that hopefully the General Assembly is going to think through. I'm a little bit concerned that they're not.
So it's a lot of unanswered questions there, that's for sure. Bill, we've run out of time, but if people want more information, if they want to get in touch with you, what can they do?
Well, we've got a website, of course, Koskoff.com, and that's got our email addresses and phone numbers. Happy to talk to anybody about this. Just finished a distracted driving case with a client, Vinny Carbone, who put out a book. I'd encourage people to look at that. It's called Distracted Driving Crosses the Line. So he was very badly affected by distracted driving, and I encourage anybody to get that.
All right, sounds good. Bill, it's always interesting when we speak with you. Thank you so much. Hope to talk to you soon.